I wanted to build schools. That's why I quit my job. Like I quit and I was like, I'm going to build a school. I'm so passionate about education. Welcome to the Wealth Faculty. Jason Witten here, and this week we got a chance to sit down and do a review on all of the guests that we've had a chat with over the last 10-12 weeks in the Wealth Faculty with the producer of the podcast, Pearce. We dived into common themes like hard work. Do you have to have hard work to succeed? Well, maybe there's some answers in the podcast. Big visions, the process of time. Nothing happens in a short time when it comes to wealth, and certainly many other things of value. Like I say often, this thing is a marathon, not a sprint. And is suffering inevitable? There seemed to be a theme popping up around that. Is it suffering? Is it pain? It's an interesting one, that one to dive deep into as well. Burnout is not an achievement. Taking care of yourself, looking after yourself. Money and marriage, big conversation around that. And inevitably, the idea that wealth is not only about money. Matter of fact, none of our guests have said money is the true meaning of wealth just yet. We might find one of them someday that will. But what is the true meaning of wealth? We dived into each of the guests and discussed what that was and the common themes in there. I hope you enjoy this conversation of the Wealth Faculty. Pearce, welcome to the podcast, the Wealth Faculty.
Jace, great to be on. I think this is 2 times in about 14 or 15 episodes. Episode 1, when we interviewed you about your true meaning of wealth. And now to come back on and do a review of some of the most incredible interviews I've had the pleasure of listening to, because you've gone deep, great man. You've really gone into your heart and soul. There's been some tears.
Yes.
There's been a lot of laughs. There's been some really, some harrowing conversations, but really some inspiring conversations as well. And I thought, let's take stock and reflect on what has been an incredible 3 months so far on the Wealth Faculty.
I'm looking forward to this conversation because, instead of continuing to do these, going back and reviewing them and pulling out some nuggets of each of those interviews, like you said, they've been amazing. I've really been enjoying chatting to these people. So let's get into it.
And often people are like, no, you should never look back in the rearview mirror of life. I'm like, no, do, and join all the dots and have a think about so much wisdom that people have shared, because you think of I'll go through this list and this is just something I'll put together quickly, but you think of so much change that has potentially happened in your listeners' lives.
Yes.
Thousands of downloads. So podcasts are interesting. You never really get a lot of engagement like, this episode changed my life, I did this and that. But often 5 years after the fact, you do.
Yeah.
And I know you've got some incredible feedback already from people that have decided to not make this investment decision or change a career that they were in for many years. And that has come, often a podcast is a great tipping point for okay, not another minute, not another day. I know a number of people have joined you at Positive Real Estate after listening to a number of specific episodes.
Yeah.
So I'll go through some themes with you and I'll, we'll riff on it, but I'll also get some of your comments. The one that really sticks out for me heavily is how many of your guests put hard work down as one of the most core ingredients to their success, when so many people are trying to almost do it on easy street.
Well, it's an interesting one. And I think sometimes the millennials get a bit of a bad rap, in this space at the moment. But the millennials who work for me certainly don't fit into this category. But it is the idea that, we're looking for that easy win, when it comes to certainly wealth and success. Let's be, we've got a great idea and then we turn into, I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg or one of those guys overnight. And I have not, in my 20 years of, creating wealth for myself, coaching others in wealth, seen that idea, be real. It is absolutely, success shows up and knocks on your door, dressed in overalls, looking dirty and disgusting. And often smelly and, a bit hideous and repulsive. And it's hard work, and that's an underlying core theme about the process of succeeding in anything, no matter what it is.
And I think, Scott Harris spoke about his times, running cafes and just working 100-hour weeks. And Pauline Ewan spoke about her times at the Red Lantern and, we'll talk about burnout, shortly in this episode, but the number of hours she thought that busy was an achievement. Trevor Hendy literally spoke about his physical burnout from just training and training and training, but also that his physical commitment was such an underpinning of his success.
Yeah.
Heather Gardner, Andy Fenton, John Wood, pretty much every guest has spoken about the amount of, you mentioned this a lot, like the dirty work, like you said, overalls work. It's not glamorous. It's not Instagrammable.
Stuff.
Yeah. It wouldn't go viral. It's just like the work that no one else wants to do. And isn't there a great one-liner that, success is doing the work that no one else is willing to do?
No one else is willing to do. You do the stuff now that no one else is willing to do.
Yeah.
So you get to do the stuff later that no one else can do. And, it is that, and it's those little bits of work and effort, and ultimately, eventually, depending on what you're up to, you might choose to outsource or employ or resource some of those things that aren't let's say your skill set or your most passion. But you've got to learn the idea of this. It's an overused word at the moment. This grit, this resilience of the journey of success, the journey of anything of value being something that you work at. It's a journey, not a destination. And, I think that gets lost often in the idea of wealth.
Yeah.
You think, oh, well, we're only doing this for money, and we'll talk about it later. That destination is out there, but the journey is far more valuable.
100%. And I think as you talk about it from a business perspective, I know one of my greatest challenges is always knowing when is the time to delegate that task, which is not my genius or not my zone of excellence.
Yeah.
And I think that is a lot of your guests have demonstrated, and I encourage, if you haven't listened to Pauline Ewan or Scott Harris or, Trevor Hendy, like they talk about when they recognize that they didn't have to go down that hard slog. Like Trevor Hendy saying, like, the Olympic dream,
chasing it.
He realized that he didn't have to chase it. When Pauline Ewan spoke about that, she didn't have to spend 80, 90 hours a week in a Red Lantern. But at the beginning, and you and I have spoken about this through our friendship over the years, there is a time to work 80, 90-hour weeks. There is a time to be completely out of balance.
Yes.
As long as it's, for want of a better term, a conscious decision and not like my life's falling apart around me, and I don't know what's going on. It's like, do it properly.
Yeah, and often in coaching conversations that I've had over the last, 18 odd years, until you have some contrast of some description from the conversation you are having, it's quite difficult to really understand the nuts and bolts, the nitty gritty of that conversation. Hard work, you've got to do hard work. All right, yeah, I get it, but you've never worked a 20-hour day in your life. You've never worked 3 weeks in a row with no break, and and you still have to get up on Monday and show up. Like, until you have some contrast, I think often those conversations are difficult to be excellent and empowering because you don't have those contrasts. So I think on the flip side of that conversation, potentially a dysfunctional conversation of hard work in the beginning for many of us because we don't know how to functionally work hard in a way
that's so true.
And then it's dysfunctional, and then you realize, well, I want the output, I want the outcome, so I know what that looks like. What are the things that, when I look back now, if I didn't have to do, they still have to get done often. But if I didn't have to do them, can I get someone else to do them? Can I organize them? Can I be a better leader, be a better manager, be a better delegator, still get the outcome, but free up space, time, and energy for myself?
That is so good, because one of the next point that I have here is a lot of your guests have had really big visions. And I think of just, again, our friendship over 14 or 15 years, I don't think you spend any less time on positive real estate and the positive group of companies, but you spend your time differently on those companies. So you're at home more, which is no doubt better for your family life and the rest of it, but you still work big hours. And I think what you're saying is, the way I'm listening it is, you still need to do some work that's inconvenient. It's not like you reach this point where you go, right, nothing in my life, in my business life anyway, is ever inconvenient ever again.
Yeah.
You just know that you actually are still doing something that you love to do, but you're not always doing the scrapey work that other people could do for 20 to 100 or even more dollars an hour, doesn't matter. But you know that you can actually pass it on, and not get so stuck.
Yeah.
On this big visions, like John Wood, I know he's been a massive part of your life. Do you find when you're interviewing guests with these big visions that it stirs something within? It's almost a Dorothy Dixer question, but that it stirs something within you. Like, you know their story. It's like, you know what they're going to say, but you can't help but be swept up in someone else's big vision.
Absolutely. The energy, it's contagious that comes out of the people that I've met like that with visions. And it's interesting because I love this question. I've asked it of a few of our guests. Well, why do you continue to work then? I've been asked this before. You've got enough money, Jason, you don't have to work. Technically, I can live a very comfortable lifestyle, not going to work ever again. But for me, I find that idea abhorrent. It's horrifying. What would I do? You
don't play golf. So
I do like rock climbing.
Yeah.
I love hanging out with my family, and then I love building schools with room to read. And then I'll say, well, that's what I'm doing already. Yeah. So technically, for me, and the conversation, if you check in with when I asked the guys from ARIA, Tim Forrester,
yes,
and he's like, well, it's not work. This is my life. This is my passion. I wake up every day, whether it's Sunday or friggin' Thursday. I wake up every day thinking about this stuff, pumped about my life. Yeah. And my life is building buildings. For me, my life is positive real estate, the mentoring clients, the education, empowering people, helping people succeed, building schools that change the world. I wake up every day. There's no Monday to Friday when you're pumped with passion.
Yeah.
And I love the reminder, because sometimes you can get down in the dirt, and I love Gary V. Gary V's got a good expression. I don't know if it's his or he's got it from somewhere else.
A tribute to him anyway.
A tribute to Gary, right? It's clouds and dirt, right? So, and sometimes you're in the dirt. Like, sometimes you have to be hands dirty, making it happen. And sometimes, like, being in the dirt all day, every day can kind of, you don't get a chance to put your head up and look around. And he said, sometimes you got to get in the clouds, and be free and floating around and feel the enormity, the wonderful magic of what you're up to. So, I like the idea of
I know for me,
sure.
like every weekend, Saturday morning, 6 o'clock, I wake up very quietly and I leave home and go to a cafe in Brunswick Heads for a couple of hours. And if I bump into people and have chats, that's great. But if I don't, I sit there and I just think in the clouds. And I'll journal and I'll write and I'll read something and I'll type and I'll think and I'll dream and all the stuff that you don't often get to do in the time when when you're spending time in the dirt or doing work. And I think that those big visions, these people like Nicole Edwards and wanting to end family and domestic violence, and like you said, Tim Forrester wanting to build buildings that they can be proud of walking past in 20 years' time with their kids, grandkids, and the rest. Like, this isn't stuff that you can necessarily convey and create when you're doing the do, as you say, when you're busy in the dirt. I think it's so important to cultivate time in your week where you can go, that's cloud time.
Yep.
Because if you don't do it, people are never going to say, go and have some cloud time. You can just think about your life in 10, 15, 20 years' time. It just doesn't come up. I'm sure for you, rock climbing is that time where it just completely clears the dirt.
And for me, climbing is the idea of mindfulness. So, climbing, the idea of, until of recent times, meditation become very popular and the in thing and the cool stuff. Well, for me, the idea of mindfulness is emptying your mind of anything else but right where you are now. And climbing's like that. It empties your mind because you're terrified where you're at. There's nothing else you're thinking of. But I love it. And sometimes when you go, when I go climbing, it can be days and days of emptying the mind and being as present as possible to what we're up to, which I love. But the idea, that these big visions, need some space and time to percolate. And it doesn't have to be a big vision to change the world. This is the stuff that I say to people. If you can think well and have a big vision for yourself and your family, or impact, at a local level, that's as powerful and as amazing as anything.
Absolutely.
And so I completely agree with you. Time in your day regularly or your week regularly for that thinking time's very important. It's part of the magic, I think.
Let's just skip ahead. I love going off the rundown. I love going just in random directions. Let's just rip up the manuscript for a moment.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about those habits and rituals. I know that I often see you and your team talking about miracle morning.
Yeah.
I'm a massive believer in, I'm a selfish first child, Leo, just give me my own time, my own space, and I can solve any problem in the world.
Yeah.
What are your habits? Because we've spoken to a lot of people on the wealth faculty around their habits. I mean, Pauline Ewan's daily rituals. If you haven't listened to that episode, folks, like go and have a listen. She's up at 4 or 4:30 in the morning. She wouldn't say sleep's overrated. She would say that sleep is a unique thing. You got to own how you like to sleep. But
tune it for your own body.
Her morning rituals is off the charts, incredible. Talk to me about yours and what have you learned from others during these series of interviews, just about rituals and habits for success.
What I've learned is everyone has them, whether they're consciously choosing them or not. And so rituals for success. A lot of people are early risers. Now, I'm not an extremely early riser, but I'm usually out of bed before 6 to 6:30.
Yep.
So I like to get out of bed. I like coffee.
Yes.
I like it's my thing. So I like a black coffee in the morning. One of the things that I've been absolutely extremely strict on in the last 2 years is intermittent fasting. I don't eat any food until 1 p.m. and I finish eating at 7 or 8 p.m. that night. So I only eat in a certain time frame. And I find that is one of the, like, if you think about a big rock of a habit to put in.
Yes, that's like your big rock.
Big rock.
Yeah.
Anytime that I'm like, I'll have a breakfast on the weekend with everyone because they're having it or something, I do some social, I feel rubbish for days.
Really?
Yeah. And so it's a massive big rock for me. Energy, just an energy booster. I love my coffee.
Yeah.
And I've found a supplement system, like vitamins and minerals and those things that really work for me. I actually got myself tested. If there's a book, if anyone's listening in, called Dirty Genes.
Yeah.
And we got ourselves tested, our DNA, all of that sort of stuff. And we've actually designed the regime down to our own individual stuff.
Yep.
And so, that's been fantastic for me. Absolutely climbing 3 days a week.
Yep.
Nothing else gets in the way.
Yep.
Other than high priority family stuff, nothing else gets in the way.
Yep.
For me, I love to learn at night. I'm a night owl. So in the morning, I like free time.
Yep.
I'll have my coffee and that's my thinking time.
Yep.
And when I'm having a nice shower, I do a shower for 15 minutes hot. I rehearse my day in the shower. So I think through my day, what's coming. And then I'll do the cold shower for the last 5 or 10 minutes at the end of every shower I ever have.
Is that a 25-minute shower?
Yeah, in the morning. I love a good long shower in the morning. It's my place where I rehearse my day.
Yep.
Now, Pauline talks about it. She lays in bed to rehearse it.
Yes.
But I love a nice warm shower.
Yep.
Getting my day warmed up, and then I snap myself into the day. The cold shower snaps me into my day.
Random, completely unimportant question. Sorry to our listeners if this is boring too. Where I live, in summer,
yes,
the cold is not that cold in the shower.
No. Well,
how are you going here?
I actually thought that this morning. I'm like, this is not cold at all.
Yeah.
Because winter's been great. So I've just ordered an ice bath from Wim Hof, an Iceman bath.
You've got one.
Yeah,
You've got one coming.
Yeah, I've got it coming. So, so I'm going to be doing that. So
you're going to do an ice bath?
Yeah, every morning.
Every morning?
Every morning, yep.
I ran an event where we did an ice bath with Guy Lawrence, a good friend who is he facilitated it. Everyone was doing the ice bath so easily that I thought this would be fine. I went in completely complacent and absolutely freaked out. Did it?
Yeah.
But it's so much harder than I thought.
Box breathing, learn to box breathe, the ice bath. For the whole of winter, I would get up when the sun came out and I would do some stretching and listening to a podcast, Jim Quick.
Yes.
He's good. So Quick brain, 10 or 15 minutes in the morning. And then I would do 3 minutes in my pool in the middle of winter and I do my box breathing. So
good.
Yeah. So like living in this hot climate, as summer comes, it loses its effectiveness. So I'm buying the ice bath now.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. We love Wim. All right. The process of time. I think we've mentioned this briefly, but I think it's so important that we talk about this. There still seems to be no quick fix to creating wealth of your dreams. Bronnie Ware was a palliative carer for 8 years and then wrote The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. She shared with you it became the fastest translated book in Hay House history. Overnight success. 8 years in the making. Tim Forrester, son of a great developer, but has created a business on his own with his colleagues to be the premier developer in Brisbane with a massive long-term vision. Scott Harris said in your first full episode, full interview of the Wealth Faculty, you've got to give this 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
There still doesn't seem to be a way that you can create the wealth of your dreams in 6 to 12 months, which seems to be what everyone's looking for. So the obvious question is, why do you think, is it a human condition thing? Why do you think that people still, like when we've heard it over and over and over again, are still looking for a short-term fix?
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting question, and I don't necessarily have the answer, but I've got some observations. And the idea that, certainly in the last 20, 30 years, the idea of fast everything is kind of on everyone's lips. Do it faster food, faster delivery, faster, whatever it is, faster internet, fast. So it's
that one's genuine. That one is a genuine need.
Let's get fast internet. Faster meetings, faster whatever. And, I think while in context, that makes a lot of sense, making efficiency in our world with technology and tools and things can be extremely valuable. But I've been overlooked, I think, the things of extreme value. And certainly creating wealth, long-term wealth, is one of those things, talking to Bronnie Ware about people dying with dignity and comfort, and, for me personally, the ability with money and wealth now to help my dad in that way now in his later years in life when he's not so well, fills me with so much, nice.
Did that tear you up, that interview? Or
it was actually beautiful and amazing to have that conversation with Bronnie. The timing was perfect. I thought the universe for me aligned. It just reminded me not to get, a bit angry about what was going on, because sometimes we do. And even though
out of the dirt and into the clouds of the
100%. And, I was cranky at him because he didn't look after himself and it was coming through, but he's nearly 80. He's had an amazing life. He's set us up amazingly as children, especially from where he came from. It was literally a street kid. He was abandoned as a child.
Really?
Yeah. We can talk about that another time. But, he decided he was going to make sure, his kids were taken care of. And, he's done an amazing job with that sort of stuff. So I was cranky because he was, wasn't looking after himself. But for Bronnie, she reminded me that, he's maybe just a bit scared right now and he just needs us to be okay with it. And,
That was really big when she said, think what the dying person is going through, what they're thinking about.
Yeah.
And stop trying to have the normal conversations when they need normality.
Yes.
But also just take a step back and think about what's going through their heart and soul at the time as well.
100%. Yeah. So it landed nicely close to home there. It was beautiful. Great timing.
So just on that, again, question without notice, but is there a guest, and you might say it's Bronnie, but is there a guest, we don't want to play favourites, but that you feel like has impacted you more than anyone else on the Wealth Faculty so far?
So far, John Wood for me.
Yep.
Yeah, and he's kind of one of my all-time faves anyway. But to really connect with John again now, and the timing's kind of almost perfect again for me because I said, in the podcast, and I've said this before, I read John's first book, and it literally changed the trajectory of my life and my business and those sorts of things. Leaving Microsoft to change the world. If you haven't read it, you got to get it.
Here.
Grab the book, and then. Oh, there he is, yeah. And so, this was the first one, camera one. For those who are listening on the podcast. Changed my life.
Yeah.
Absolutely changed my life. Literally read the book, started crying on the aeroplane, locked myself in a room and rewrote the next 10 years of my life.
Because I never understood that. I said to you, so John Wood changed your brought out the humanitarian in you, and you said, no, he changed my whole business life.
The whole thing.
Not just build schools. Well, can you explain that? Because we didn't get to that in the interview.
Well, I think now what is now John is directly communicating, which is again why is one of my favorite interviews so far. And they've been all amazing for all their different reasons. But again, he's talking about the incorporating your purpose into your profit and your passion.
He called it powered by purpose.
Powered by purpose, and it's fantastic because for me in business, not speaking for anyone else, but for me, once we got all the widgets going and the levers and the bolts and the nuts and bolts, the tactics, and it made money and there was money in the bank and I had money and everyone had money. It's like, well, it felt a little bit empty, you know? And so for me, mastering those things were great. And now what next?
It's like, why did we do that again?
Yeah,
What's it all for?
Because I think I was telling you that I wanted to build schools. That's why I quit my job. Like I quit and I was like, I'm going to build a school. I'm so passionate about education. And then so well, shit, I need some money. So I'd read this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was excited about the idea of making money, and so I kind of went on a tangent, went on the side road, not the freeway, but we all go on the freaking side roads, you know. It was the scenic route, and it was beautiful and amazing, but at that point, I'd felt I'd been financially successful, but it felt a bit empty.
Yep.
And
hadn't filled the spiritual bucket.
Well, I hadn't built my schools. I was so far away from building schools and having that educational impact. But again, it was maybe, just in life, as you do, sometimes the shine comes off it. Sometimes when you look at it, success is still dressed in those overalls. And now there's rips in those overalls, and it looks grotty and dirty.
Well, you still do a lot of coaching calls with clients, and I always find that amazing. It's like I'm trying to book in some time with you, and D's like, he's got a coaching call. I'm like, I
still do 10 coaching calls a week.
Wow.
I love to stay connected.
Is it just keeping your toe in the water? Is it
100%?
Yeah.
And I do love that, and soon enough, in the next 2 to 5 years, I believe I'll be doing coaching with my teams, and then the coaching with the clients will be handed on to all of my coaches, because they're amazing, led by Tabitha and the team and stuff like that. But like now, I'm getting enough people in my leadership teams and my business partners that now is then I'm going to still continue to coach, because I think it's part of who I am, teach and coach.
Yeah.
Continue to do that with those guys and girls as well. So it's pretty amazing.
That's it.
But Johnny,
and this
Johnny
is what
Wood,
got you. This is what got you. Purpose Incorporated. That is because you and I have had chats about putting purpose into profits and everything. When he mentioned that, I just saw your whole face light up, and that was like
totally
that really got you, didn't it?
So like 6,000 kids now go to school every day because of the schools that we've built over the years, and that's, imagine the knock-on effect of that. So now, in my head, I don't want it to be 6,000. I want it to be 60,000 kids. In the next 10 years, how can we have 60,000 kids going to school every day because of what we've created through positive, our investing, our profit that is powered by purpose? How do we do that? And that's a big, awesome, amazing question, and I'm going over to Hong Kong to do some stuff with John. I'm looking forward to that.
Now, purpose is one thing, but on the other side, it's not the other side of the coin, but it's something that has come up quite regularly, is that for many guests, they've experienced what I could just loosely call like incredible suffering. Pauline Ewan's childhood was just so hard to hear. To hear her say that my childhood was my training is almost like that is the prototype of reframing, redefining what the challenges of life mean to someone.
Yeah.
But my question to you is, from your experience, either with your guests or even just in your own life, do you think that suffering is inevitable? I know it's probably not even the right term, but if I said suffering is inevitable, agree or disagree, what's your view?
Well, it's an interesting one, because a quote comes up. I can't remember who said it, but I think it might have been Buddha or something, said suffering, pain is inevitable, suffering is not.
Yeah.
So
I think you're spot on. I think that is a Buddha quote, yeah.
So, the idea that pain / suffering in any pursuit comes from the idea of, reaching for something, failing, stretching, relearning, maybe learning to frame or position an experience that you're having, which may not be your direct fault or influence, but you have to endure it. Whatever those things are, like Pauline, I think that uniqueness about how we travel through life like carves us into this diamond, right? You don't get a diamond without heat and pressure. And I believe that training, that resilience, that grit, there's no other way to embody it. There's no other way to get it into your DNA as a human other than to go through some form of pressure and stress training in one way or another. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be as intense as Pauline's.
That's the thing. I'm looking at some of the guests. There's a lot of death as the result. Death, Andy Fenton, losing his partner to suicide. Kim and Danny Morrison. Danny sharing about his sister's suicide. Yeah. Bronnie Ware spending 8 years with dying people and the lessons from that. But some heavy stuff you've dealt like that your guests have shared. Well,
it's an interesting one, right? So this is the coaching conundrum, right? So, all right. Well, listen, Marcus, you know that you should do this thing. You know it, but you don't do it. Why? And in my observation, doing some things with Tony Robbins and other people, there's these significant events in people's lives that happen that gives us this kind of like, call it the wake-up call, call it the whatever, that then people go, oh, fuck, okay, all right, everything that I've been doing or most, like it's not what I want. Like it's kind of that the frog in the pot, boils to death water, because it's slow and steady, right? A significant emotional event, a significant financial event, a significant physical event. I had a heart attack. Now I've rethought my life. Mm-hmm. I was flying along. I had, 2 cars on credit, and $1 million house, 5 credit cards. We were the credit rich, and then we imploded, right? A significant emotional event. I thought we were happy, and then my wife just left me, or my husband just left me, right? A significant spiritual event. You could say like the Holocaust happened, and where's God in the Holocaust? My mum says, "Where's God in a child dying?" Yeah, you can have a real those things. So why is it? And I don't know the answer to this one. Why is it we have to wait till that happens to us to then go, oh yeah, what we're up to is shit house,
Well, sorry, go on. You were going.
And maybe, just maybe, if we're going to say the meaning, maybe that's part of what we're here for. That maybe that's part of our evolution, our purpose is to remember, embody some of those things at some point. And if we don't pay attention, the universe will send us a few little, reminders that we're here to evolve in one way, shape, or form.
Okay, so I gotta go mind-bending philosophical on you now.
Going left here.
Yeah, totally going left. Because there's no doubt that you have experienced way more heartache in your life than I have. So as someone who has experienced, I would almost say, more than their fair share of emotional heartache, do you walk around on tenterhooks worried that something's around the corner, or are you more aggressively living your best life knowing that you can handle whatever's going to come your way? Like, how do you now navigate through? Because if we know that stuff's going to happen anyway.
It's going to happen anyway.
Some people are living kind of looking over their shoulder, like waiting for the car accident to happen. Others are like, I'm just going straight for it, and it'll happen when it happens. Like, where do you go these days?
One of the most empowering things for me to really understand and embody is that you are the meaning maker. There's only one thing you get to choose in life, and that's how you react to the events that occur in your life. That's the only true personal choice that you have that can't be influenced by anyone else. You choose. And this is I read a book, The Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl.
Yes.
Right?
Love it. I love it.
Listen, it's a hard book to consume. And, I challenge everyone listening today to go read that book. And he said, that's the only thing that they can't take from me. I can choose how I respond to what's going on. And that's the only thing I've got, because they broke my back, they killed my friends, every opportunity to be so angry and whatever with the world. And he said, no, I choose that. And the moment that I really understood that was the most powerful thing that I can practice to do, because I'm not perfect at it, and I don't think anyone ever will be.
Yeah.
Maybe Viktor Frankl is, because he got the ultimate place to practice that to see if he was real with it. But mate, the universe has gifted me with those experiences, and then I've got to look on those experiences and say, how will I define those experiences that make them empowering for me? How do I describe them to my children, right? And
that's a good one.
It's an interesting one.
Yeah.
You say, well, all right, I'll give you an example. So, I had a very bad bust up with business partners, and they were the godparents to my children. I was the godparents to their children. Our children were best friends, right? So then how do I explain that to my child, right? Did I go in and say, oh, they were mean people and they did the wrong thing and everything was their fault? I didn't. I said, Daddy made a mistake and I couldn't repair it. And so we're not friends now. And if I get a chance, maybe we can in the future. And I meant that. I said, I made the mistake. Daddy made the mistake.
You took ownership.
I took ownership, and what I see now playing out with my kids, and I'm not saying that was the only thing that did that, is they take that ownership in those things. I didn't blame. I didn't say they were mean people and whatever. As they got older, we explained more. We did explain more about what happened. But for me, I get to make the meaning. I say right now, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, because we would not be where we are today if that experience didn't occur. And I truly believe those things. We get to co-create the future because of how we make things mean. And that's really important to understand.
That's so important. And as you're saying it, I'll just take you back to Viktor Frankl for a moment. For people that haven't read the book, I sincerely recommend that you do. He refers to what you're saying as a tragic optimism. So even when the most terrible stuff, Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor, even when the most tragic stuff has occurred, how can you find optimism in that? And that's what you're referring to, even the most challenging things. And the Holocaust survivors that I've spoken to personally will say there are millions of people that went through the Holocaust that are still in the concentration camps because of the meaning that they have created for their life. Yeah. And the ones that we read books about and are inspired by in documentaries and the rest are the ones that made the effort. And I don't know how they did the work to create an empowering meaning around their life experiences.
Those things.
And they often found that their purpose for their survival was to shine a light on the strength of the human spirit.
Well, that was one of Viktor Frankl's things, right? It's like he said, well, if all these people died for nothing, I have to survive to show that it was for something, right? And, and that's, one of your and I's favorite, DeMartini, he does the
collapse. The
process,
yeah.
There can't be only good or only bad in anything, right? So, draw a line down the page, good, bad, and an experience, whatever it is, what is the good that happened in there? Yeah. Write it down. And I think that's super practical process, because sometimes you can be angry. Sometimes you can be sad. Sometimes, and none of that helps.
All this money drops in the bank and people go, woohoo! Or there's no money dropping in the bank. People are like, oh. And there's never, I think the great thing is great thing happens. Well, what's the challenge of that? Or a really tough thing happens. What's the blessing in that? And like you said,
I'm just doing a framework now about the experience in COVID, right? So certainly in our business and a lot of businesses, teams have come together like never before. But what I'm saying again with this is the DeMartini. It was survival. We're all in this together. Like, no one's better than anyone else. I don't care that you're black, brown, blue, green or white. I don't care what religion you are. We're all in it together. Let's go, team. I don't care. Like, all of that kind of got put aside in the survival moment. You got my back. I got yours. If we don't, we're going to die.
Wow.
Right? So that's happened for a lot of people, teams, companies.
Yes.
The ones that didn't get that went into the downward spiral in survival and tore each other apart, e.g. a lot of America, right?
Yeah.
So, but then now we come out of survival, maybe we get into thrival.
Yeah.
There's bad and good on both sides. Now thrival. I actually worked a bit harder than Marcus in that time. He didn't do as much as me. Now we're not threatened every day for survival. Now we get back to our stupid world. And so and this is, for me, one of the things about Powered by Purpose is I want to jump over this thrival conversation about who works harder and who should be. We're driven by purpose now, you know? So it's an interesting conversation, you know, in that sort of stuff. There's both sides to the coin.
Let's just go where a lot of people don't like to talk about. I love in a lot of the conversations you've had is like all of the taboo topics. And one that came up in the Kim and Danny Morrison interview is money.
Yes.
They've had a, Storm financial crisis. They lost everything with Storm, having lost a large chunk earlier in a development where essentially they got stooged out of money by virtue of Danny Morrison's profile in New Zealand. And Kim Morrison said in an interview with you, if we'd actually had money in the bank, that Danny's behaviour at the time may have given her more push to go, let's just end our marriage.
Yeah.
So let's talk about money as a large part of marriage, because it's something that no one really talks about. And again, it's come up on a couple of episodes, but you chat with people every week about money, and a lot of those people are married.
Yes.
How do we have a more mature conversation around the role and the importance of money in a thriving relationship?
Well, it's an extremely important conversation. You and I were chatting off air, just, after the wedding comes a marriage. And for many of us, by the time we get married also, the chemical romance is gone. Like, there's some science to this stuff. If anyone wants any more info on it, just give us a shout out.
Yeah, you don't have to feel so guilty if you're not shagging 7 times a week and you're not going out on dates every second night and you're not going to the theatre on your night off. And
millions of years of evolution means, male meets female, by and large, reproduce chemically quickly, make sure that they're chemically bonded for a certain period of time so you can have the baby, the offspring and the mother don't die in childbirth. And by and large, after that, the chemical is gone, right? So
no one wants to talk about it.
No one wants to hear about this stuff, right? So, but I love this stuff. I love understanding what's going on and then being conscious enough as a human to use the thing that we're given that no other animal on the planet has, as far as we know, this idea of choice. We get to consciously choose to stay in a relationship. We consciously choose love. It's a 4-letter word, right? And it comes dressed in overalls, and it's dirty, right? Love is hard work.
Yeah.
True love, and everyone has to work at it. Now, it doesn't have to be hard all the time. And this is the thing when it comes to being in a relationship. Money helps make that relationship more comfortable often, because if you're going to be in a relationship for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, no holidays, no nice things, no whatever, or whatever your terms are, no extra little things, it can wear you down. And that's where I think money is an integral part of long-term relationships. I think money is an integral part, or not necessarily money, but the use of your resources is something that's important to discuss.
And how it's used, like you said, the use of it, is it conducive with the relationship that you're in? Because there's a lot of people that have money, and someone's gambling all of that money, or someone's wasting that money in some way.
It was an interesting one. Like John Wood said it. I think it was like 93% of every dollar earned by a mother in a third world country goes towards supporting the family. Where, it was less than 20% of a dollar of a male earned goes towards the family, right?
It's embarrassing.
It's
embarrassing.
Totally embarrassing. Yeah. And so instead of putting some judgment on that, like, how do we have that conversation? How do you, in a relationship, sit down and say to your partner, okay, cool, we're in this together. Now, are we going to have kids? Are we going to have careers? Are we going to have businesses? Let's talk about them, because like, the fairy tale you can have it all is bullshit, fucking bullshit. And we have to work out a way that we're happy to have as much as we can with the compromises that we deem appropriate for us at the right time.
Well, I feel like, again, call me a little bit fairy tale, but I'm like, I think we can have it all, but just not right now.
Not all at the same time.
These are the 50 things on the list.
Yeah.
What is top 5?
Yeah.
And what's going to be, like, I know for me, I want to live on the Greek island of Vicaria for a year, and I really want to do it in my life.
Yes.
But it's going to be in about 18 years. Well, and I don't want to give up on it.
Well, this is the thing, and that's a good definition on that. Where and I see money playing out a very in a difficult way in relationships when it's not talked about. Certainly when children come into the picture.
Yeah.
And careers, money, and sacrifices have to be made. Often when two young people are together and they get married and whatever, it's kind of they're still a bit independent. You know, they both get a chance to have their careers or their businesses. They're supporting each other.
Yeah.
And at some point, 90% of families choose to have children in one way, shape, or form, and their economic capacity is reduced significantly. And that is not talked about.
That is I'm not a good person to talk about this because I did make the decision. Sarah and I made the decision that she would retire from chiropractic.
Yeah.
And I would do, we have a very, it's almost like, I don't like to talk about it because it's a very old school traditional family. I go to work, Sarah raises the kids.
Yeah.
I'm still very invested in the family. But it's not something that we talk publicly a lot because it's a bit of judgment around.
Well, again, it's
family
this
setup.
It's this judgment, and I think it's bullshit. If a family discusses and chooses it and works it out, then absolutely awesome.
Yeah,
it's a great choice. I actually think it's rubbish that it's deemed a secondary choice. If the family wants to choose that structure, fine. If the family wants to choose to have a full-time nanny so both parents can work, fine.
Absolutely.
Completely fine.
Make the decision that's right for you.
Yeah. And it's not forever.
Yeah.
Because and this is like, so, and I say this all the time to my coaching clients, this is for now, not forever.
Yeah.
You need to go back to work, and I've had this chats with mums. I said, okay, well, you guys really want to put now wealth as a priority, so then we need more income in your life. Okay, guys? And the only easy way I see that happening right now is that, Mary, you need to get a full-time job. Well, what about the kids? Well, okay, the kids have to go into care. Should we do it 3 days? So we talk about that stuff often. And it's an uncomfortable conversation, but when we stack it up and we say, well, here's the choices. The choices are you now get investing 8 years earlier than you otherwise were planning. The sacrifice is for 2 years, Mary, not for 8 years. So we need you working for 2 years to get this done, because those properties are going to pay for themselves. Oh, it's not forever? Oh, because in their head, it was like, it's a black or white choice. It's binary.
Yes, that's so true.
And when you discuss it in different ways, it's not binary. It's kind of like, well, okay, for 18 months, I can do that. And then life changes. So I love the conversation. I think it's an important thing to have.
Yeah, and when both partners are involved.
Got to have both partners.
Not coming home going, I'm going to work for 2 years.
Yeah.
I think that's what happens a lot in relationships. It's still that holding on to this, because we're individuals.
Yes.
But we're also living within an environment where our choices impact others. One that I've never asked you about, and I'm hearing it, and it still rubs me up the wrong way, is, sorry kids, we can't afford that. I hate I hate the A word. I never think of the world in affordability. I feel like there's times I often feel like it's values, or we need to just pop it to one side and we're going to save for it, or whatever it is. But
100%.
For me, affordability is like, it can't be done.
Well, it's a negative approach to a conversation.
So for the people listening, and again, no judgment, for people listening to go, I actually do say to my kids, we can't afford that right now.
Yeah.
How do you feel, what's your suggestion to reframe, re-language, repurpose those conversations?
So one of the thing is, like, one of the most important things that I love is, like, remember who's watching.
Yes.
Right? And it's your kids. All right? And do you want your kids to grow up thinking that you can't afford anything, that it's always a world of lack? And the answer is no. Now, and it's not the idea that you can afford anything, but the idea that is that what you want to afford? Okay, is that in our budget? We say it to our kids.
So true. Is that what you want to afford? That's a great reframe.
So for right now, the challenge for us is going to be, is that in the family budget?
Yeah.
Because we talk about budget all the time. We've told our kids all year that we're buying a spa for the family for Christmas.
Wow.
That's what we're budgeting,
Yeah.
right? Now, I could buy a lot more, but we say to our kids, that's what we're doing.
Yeah,
This
I
year,
love
we're
it.
not buying ludicrous presents for everyone individually.
Yep.
We're pooling together. Holidays. We do one family holiday. That's in our budget.
Yep.
That's what we save for, and we tell our kids, right? So could we do more? We could, but I don't want to do that for me. Now, on the flip side, if someone is saying, okay, we can't afford that, well, on the flip side, this is how we could afford it, kids. Here's the resources that we have as a family. And I encourage everyone to start talking to their children as early as possible about the resources that we have as a family and how we choose to use them, because you will be amazed what your kids come up with. I've said that to my kids. My 17-year-old, very, very, family-orientated boy says, all right, well, Dad, I'm happy to chip in for the holiday. I'll put some of my pocket money in. It's so good, right? Teach your kids, if we want this, that we have to plan it and go after it together as a family, right? If we want that holiday, what is it? It's $5,000 for the holiday. All right, kids, well, we might have to tighten the belt on going out 3 nights a week. We only do 1 night a week and we do this and that. And they will love it. They will love it. They will love it.
Oh, that's good. You got me thinking. You got me buzzing. Wealth comes up on the last question of every episode.
Yes.
You say to everyone, Jason Witten, what is the true meaning of wealth to you? And I haven't told you this. I sometimes get calls from the guests going, I was put on the spot and I wasn't really happy with my answer.
I want to do another answer.
I said, every single one of you, it's been an incredible answer.
Yes.
And some people have almost altered their answer mid-sentence. Have you noticed that they start off and then they go, actually,
hang on.
I almost want to redefine it because it really gets people thinking. But to this day, no one has said, Jason, simple, money in the bank and as much of it as you can. And I'm just wondering if we'll actually get a guest that says it's as simple as this, Jason. It's money in the bank. But don't you think it's interesting that a podcast called The Wealth Faculty has not had one person yet say that it's actually about the amount of money that you have to your name?
Yeah. Well, maybe on the surface it's interesting, but when you stop and think about it, I think it becomes as obvious as people with their answers, because money becomes an enabler or a magnifier, like resources. What resources do we have? Resources are time. Resources are our bodies, our minds. What resources do we have that we want to put somewhere? We want to direct in some way, shape, or form, right? And so money becomes an enabler of those resources. If we don't have enough time, often people will seek out money to give them more time. Like even not directly, they were like, I want to buy a positive cash flow property. Well, why? Because then I won't have to work so much. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So by default, especially some of the people we're interviewing are saying, well, yeah, money is important, but I can see what it gets me, what it enables me to do, rather than the money itself. I'm sure we'll end up with a guest saying that sometime. Let's hope so.
But it's all very much, it comes back to really vision-based, isn't it? It's like if you know what your vision is, the money is just another metric is far too simplistic, but the money is just another measure as to how you are going in the evolution and the creation of the vision that you're after. And I know on Urban Property Investor, Sam Saggers, your positive colleague, is often saying, you've got to know your number. And it's like, you've got to know your number, but why is that number important to you? Like, I know Sam's often like, I forget what his number is, but I know if it says he wants $300,000 in income.
Yes.
No matter what. So based on his interest and all the rest of it, I forget the actual number, but the key is that he knows exactly what that number represents and why. And I think you've nailed it on the head. It's actually knowing that wealth is more connected to your purpose and your vision for your life rather than just the money that it is.
It's the driver. It's the fuel in that engine that keeps you going. And the idea that money is limited is also one that is an interesting one, and I chuck it out there because there's never been more money in circulation ever in our history, and money's just an idea. It's a piece of plastic. It's dots, it's zeros, whatever it is. There's so much money.
Yeah.
Now the idea that it's a limited resource, or we have to scrape and fight for it. Well, no, it's unevenly distributed. There's plenty for everyone. Go get a big chunk of it.
I think what COVID for me has just matured that belief even more, because I've been staggered, and I'm very grateful, but absolutely staggered by the amount of government stimulus there has been. I still remember calling my accountant after 2 months of JobKeeper. So the way our business is set up, both Sarah and I received double JobKeeper. I ran a lot of events. They all had to be cancelled and the rest. But my accountant said, no, sorry, you can't cancel the JobKeeper. You've got it for the next 6 months. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah. This government's amazing. You look around the world and you think there's governments that were not doing stimulus to the same level of Australia. And you think, how lucky are we to live in a country like Australia? But then on the other side of the coin is I also recognise how many people that have struggled during this time, and how much money has been donated privately by people during this time that have given their money away to people that have been struggling financially. Yeah. And I think what you're saying and what I'm observing is, particularly in times of challenge for a lot of people, you actually realise how much money there is in the world. Like how much money there is. Yeah. Whether it is through stimulus, whether it is through private enterprise, whether it is through people giving, whatever it is. It's a phenomenal, I think it's a great wake-up call for people to recognise it. There is not a lack. And I think a lot of people from their family upbringings or their working environments or the rest of it are indoctrinated into believing that there is a lack of finance out there.
Well, and I think, Scotty Harris said in the original episode, it's money is made in the mind, and Robert Kiyosaki said exactly the same thing. I remember actually thinking he was full of shit when I first read his book. I was like, bullshit, mate. You just want me to buy your next book. Stop telling me that it's all in the mind and, you need my next book to work it out. And I'm like, you bugger, But it's so true. I sit here 20 years later and I still believe I've got much more to learn. But knowing that when you upgrade the software that you're running in this hardware, which we call the body and the brain, you upgrade the software with a better version, a better story, a better meaning about money. Like, where did you get that meaning from anyway? It's you got it from someone who didn't consciously do it. Upgrade the meaning. There is more money than you can poke a stick at. Go get some. How do you get it? Well, learn from great people. And we were talking about this, the right mentors. Right.
That's my last question. Is this whole wealth faculty the double meaning? So who's on your faculty? And again, you've interviewed a number of people that are on yours, and there's many more to come. But there's so much advice out there and so many different ways to get it that I was saying to you that sometimes I don't want to take wealth advice from someone that's bankrupt in their family and bankrupt in their house. But that's just me. Some people no, they're a master with money, but I'm like, well, at what cost? Like, where do you sit on this? I think this is a really big philosophical conversation. Is the wealth faculty people that are really good with their wealth and we forget about other areas of life? Or do you think it's really important that your wealth faculty is a more holistic view of life?
Well, I think maybe go one level out from that. I think it's flawed for any person to think another person will be perfect in all of those places.
Yes, totally.
So we were joking about, someone who is, like you said, not so healthy, but they're wealthy. Will you take wealth advice for them? Well, you might take some of that information that they know, some tactical information that is very good. They've mastered that bit, right? Tactical. You take the tactical information, but your implementation, you wouldn't do it how they would do it per se.
Yep. Perfect example. Yeah. A trader or someone that's good with shares. They might sit in front of their computer for 2 or 3 hours, probably even longer, but they might not eat, or they might eat terrible food.
Or they might be on the white gear or something or whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
That's not the lifestyle you're going to live.
Yes. Right? Yeah. But you're going to say, well, tactically, they've got all the smarts. I'm gonna take that part of it, but I'm gonna have my chicken salad and my ginger tea.
Yes. Yes.
Or my black coffee and fast whilst I'm applying that. That's a big learning for me, just even as you say that.
Yeah. Because it's not going to come in one package. And I see this often when people experience maybe this idea of a guru. You know, I certainly, my first seminar experience was with Bob Proctor.
Yes.
You know, and
you saw Bob Proctor live?
No, I didn't. It was on tapes.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. I bought the program Born Rich, and I listened. It was so good.
I love that. Yes. I love You Were Born Rich. Yeah,
it was so good.
Yeah.
And so I just love Bob in everything. And so you kind of have a soft spot for your first experience, your first guru, your first whatever.
Your infatuation. You're in love.
Yeah, you do.
Love.
It's certainly it's equivalent to love. It's this aha moment. Your mind is expanded and will never be the same again, right? You know, however, you know, I'm not taking advice from Bob on, you know, parenting or children or marriage or whatever. You know, I took the motivation stuff from Bob Proctor, and then I sought out, not on purpose at that point, but I sought out others. And so, you know, Scott Harris, I was talking about, he is one of my go-to people when I think I need to make an important family decision. I need to balance up myself, my business, all of these other things. Who would I 100% want to model and go to and ask for advice? I'd go to Scott Harris.
That's so true.
But however, Scott doesn't own a business.
Yeah.
He's an extreme expert at his skill and his level, and he works with other people. He's got his own consultancy. So I'm not asking Scott about growing my business. I'm going to other people for business growth advice.
Yes.
And I get consciously to choose the best of the best for the bit that I need. Yeah. And I think that's important. That kind of like ties in the wealth faculty concept of the bits of your life, your personal, your physical, your emotional, your mental, and then those faculty members who are going to add value to that bit, you know.
I love that. You've really just blown something up in my brain about how to not quash all the good stuff that we get, but also how to actually absorb it in a holistic way. Often I say to Sarah, you know, we've got 4 children. I say, babe, you know, we're like the vegans of family now, where they're like, we love the Pearces, but 4 kids is pretty loud and raucous. It's like, we love, because we used to be vegan. Yeah. We love Marcus and Sarah, but we've got to cook another meal, and what are they going to eat, and what if they don't eat this? And this. I said, so we've just got to be careful. Like, you don't want to necessarily take the advice of the parent with 1 child, because it's harder to apply when you've got 4 children. You know, it's a lot easier to listen to stories of people that have 4 children, because it's a lot easier to relate to. And I think what you're saying is you can actually still learn from people from all walks of life, but you've also got to have the wisdom to apply it in a way that's succinct with your values and not try and live their life.
That's it. It's a values application of a tactical bit of information, right? Yeah. It's kind of like, don't take the tactical and implant it in as a value. Yeah. Keep your values high, but then implant the tactical.
I just love that.
Yeah.
So if a parent of 1 child says, I make them, you know, eggs and greens for breakfast, you don't go, well, doesn't work for me because I've got 4 kids. You go, well, my kids would love that as well. Yeah. Or I'm going to make, you know, French toast or whatever it is. I think the tactics, that's a really good definition. I'm harping on this a bit because I really like it. First of all, congratulations on an incredible start to the Wealth Faculty. It's been a joy to be a part of the opening dozen or so episodes. I've already said to you, are you prepared for 52 interviews in 2021? And you are.
Looking forward to it. I'm pumped.
Yeah, so there's going to be some incredible people coming up on the Wealth Faculty. Let's just be very clear, though. There's a lot of hard work in podcasting, isn't there? It's not all glamorous. Just get behind the microphone and away you go.
There's a lot of preparation, and thank you to you and Marty so far. We've done a lot of learning. Marty over there on the big screen. Only just getting started, really enjoying it, and you guys again, as part of my faculty, to bring this to life, getting the experts. I mean, you're no slouch when it comes to a podcast or two yourself, Marcus, you know. How many episodes in are you guys on?
We just did 400 the other day.
400 episodes, you know. So again, I think that even, you know, cuts into the theme here. You know, find the best people, experienced people, and, you know, get them on your faculty.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of wisdom both ways. For the people watching and listening, this is really important. the iTunes world, which is almost a premier world out there from a
Yes.
tech perspective. A lot of people listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts.
Yep.
If you would love to share this message with the world, one of the best things that you can do is give the podcast a 5-star rating and write a review, even if it's just your favorite guest or what you've learned, what you've loved. Just let the other people that are searching the charts and searching for a podcast that they would love to listen to, let them know, because that's how Apple does rate the certain podcasts, is how many people are giving each podcast a rating and a review. So if you're on Apple Podcasts specifically, give it a 5-star rating and a review, and that would mean the world.
Give it a shout out. Give it a share.
Give it a share, absolutely.
Yep.
Because as I tend to say, when you share a podcast, it's like a great book. When you share a great podcast with your friends and family, you change their world.
Totally.
Forever. Jace, well done again. I look
you.
forward to the next episode of The Wealth Faculty.
Marcus Pearce, thank you for being on the Wealth Faculty today.
My pleasure.
Hey, thanks for joining us on the Wealth Faculty. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure you subscribe. Where all good podcasts are found, you can find us there. And if you want to watch it, you can subscribe on YouTube, Positive Mentor TV. And until the next episode, take care. Bye for now.